Multiple concurrent crises this year, the pandemic, the economic meltdown, social movements and uprising, political crisis, military conflicts, etc., have tested and continue to test the resolve of corporate leaders like never before in the last century. CEOs and leaders' legacies will be judged through the lens of their responses and actions during this period. How should leaders globally respond in these times? To find ideas in this, Positive Moves is delighted to present a dialogue with Vineet Nayar. Vineet is one of the most distinguished corporate leaders of our time. Starting his career in 1985 with HCL Technologies, Vineet spent 28 years with the company. He founded and grew the Comnet business, which became a CEO factory, both for HCL Technologies as well as the global IT services industry. A visionary, Vineet took over as CEO of HCL Technologies in 2005 and grew the company from a $700 million business to a $5 billion conglomerate by 2013. Vineet transformed the company into a strong global brand and among the world's most aspirational and influential companies. A radical thinker, Vineet stunned the world with his employees first, customer second philosophy and approach, creating a new paradigm for prioritization and value creation for corporations globally. Currently, Vineet wears many hats. He is a senior advisor to the McKinsey Leadership Institute and the private equity firm Chris Capital. Above all, Vineet realized his dream of giving back by setting up the Sampark Foundation with the vision of enabling innovation in education. The foundation has had a profound impact on primary education in India and is also the subject of a case study at the Harvard Business School. It is hard to describe Vineet in one word. He's a foremost thought leader on leadership, innovation, and creativity. His ideas have received fulsome praise from influencers like the late C.K. Pralat, Tom Peters, Gary Hamel, and Ram Charan. Above all, Vineet is a person who has always believed in sharing knowledge to help people be more than they can be. Vineet, thank you so much for taking time for the discussion today.
Thank you for inviting me.
So let's get into this. In an article I was reading in FT a couple of days ago on how COVID-19 will change the world, Martin Wolf wrote that the society that will emerge will probably be even less cooperative and effective. Do you agree with that?
Martin is an alarmist. He needs people to read his newspaper. With every crisis, whether it is a personal crisis or a company crisis, the first step towards that crisis is self-preservation. You try and save yourself. And therefore, you tend to be selfish, you tend to think about yourself. And once you feel a little secure that you are safe, then you get into the second phase, what I call the optimization phase. In optimization phase, you reach out to the society, you reach out to globalization, you reach out to other corporations to reduce your cost, increase your revenue, increase your profitability, hire the right bunch of people. And then once you are satisfied with that, you reach the third phase, which is thinking of the society for the greater good. Now, this is the sequence which repeats itself in every crisis, whether it was the 2008 crisis or the 99 crisis or any crisis, you go through this three cycles. So just because people have hit the self-preservation mode does not mean that the society has changed there is a radical change. I think we will get back to optimization. I think we will get back to globalization. And I think this kind of crisis creates more focus and more energy towards the global good, which is the third phase. Therefore, I do not agree with Martin's view. And I think in his article, he also wrote that this will change if we take a different set of decisions, which I think as a humanity we will.
Thanks. Vineet, what are the key leadership challenges and dilemmas faced by corporate leaders during these crises?
See, the way to think about this as a leader is that you're driving into a very dark tunnel and your headlights are off. You do not have information on how long the tunnel is, and you do not have information if there are bends on the tunnel. So this is what I call the tunnel of uncertainty, right? You drive into the tunnel with completely uncertain. Now, a lot of leaders press brake because they wait for the sunlight to come, or they wait for some other car to get ahead of them so that they can follow. And the question I ask leaders is as follows. If we had self-driven cars, we would not need leaders. We need leaders to drive through uncertain times, through uncertain tunnels. So the reason of your existence is to drive through this tunnel as fast as you can. So be clear in your head that you have a job only as long as the uncertainty lasts. If this was not uncertain and it was certain, then we need managers, we don't need leaders. Leadership is a trait to be able to guide a set of people, a set of organizations, a set of society through uncertain times. Now, having said that, there are four, what I would say, question marks in the minds of the leader. Do I invest or do I harvest? What businesses do I invest? What businesses do I harvest? Do I profit or do I focus on purpose? So that comes to the fact, the same thing which I said, am I fighting for survival? That is profit. Am I fighting for greed? That is profit. Or am I for a greater good? So where are you on that? Third is this what presents me an opportunity or a threat? Is it that all other leaders will not be able to drive through this tunnel, and therefore if I drive fast, I will get ahead, so it's an opportunity? Or is it a threat that I can die, my organization can drive, so I should press a brake and wait on the sideline for the clouds to clear? So how should I think about it? And the last is, should I be thinking about me, because I'm insecure, I may die, my family may die, or should I be thinking about us, the organization, and all the town hall talks which I gave in terms of I am for you, and employees are great, and customers are great. So should I be thinking about them at this juncture, or should I be thinking about myself? I think these are the four questions which every single leader is thinking. And I'm sure they will come up with their own answers to all of these four problems. But the first thing they should think about, as I started this conversation, is the reason you exist is because there is a crisis. And as a leader, if you outshine others in this crisis, there will be no tomorrow for you. That is your legacy. So this is the time to get extremely excited of the position you hold.
Okay, that's a very inspiring and a very positive way of looking at for leaders to look at this crisis. So coming to my next question as a follow-up, what are the factors which should influence their responses? And if you can share some examples of some defining actions and decisions, that people can take, it could be with your own examples or other illustrations otherwise. I think that will, we can all learn from that.
I think, Praveen, if you allow me, I'd like to share a story which has influenced my thinking, and I think it will define what I'm going to say. Actually, three stories. So the first was when I was a very small child, I think 4 years old, and I was in Nagpur and playing a game of cricket with my friends. And my friend hit a ball, it broke the window of my neighbor. His name was Dr. Lakshmipati Rao. And he came out, he was very angry. He caught hold of me because he knew me, and I had rung his bell to get my ball back. The ball was mine, but it was hit by my friend. And during those days, you can catch hold of anybody's son and slap him and whack him, and your parents will feel happy that somebody else is helping them discipline the child. So he got hold of me, he took me inside, tied me to a chair in front of the window which I had broken as a punishment. Now I felt very sad. I started crying for two reasons. Number one, it was not my fault. And number two, all my friends were making a lot of fun of me. Anyway, what looked like lasting for a couple of hours, and I'm sure it was a couple of minutes, he let me go. And I was sitting on the porch and crying. And there was a lady called Mrs. Anand, who was a mentor to me. And she used to stay on the floor above us. This is government quarters. And she called me up and she says, Mintu, that was my name, says, why are you crying? So I told her a long story in terms of what had happened. So she caught hold of me, put me on top of the dining table and asked me again, so what are you going to do about it? And I told her the story all over again. And she asked me the same question, what are you going to do about it? I think after fourth or fifth time she said that, I understood that her question was not what happened, but what am I going to do about it? I got down, went down, picked up a stone, broke his another window, pressed the bell and said, Uncle, I had not broken the first window, but because you have given me the punishment, I've broken the second window. Now, I would not recommend that to everybody, but my first lesson in management was from Mrs. Anand, that shit happens. The world is unfair. Corona happens and you had expansion plans and you had all kinds of things. The question is not how far and how deep coronavirus impact on your business and your personal life will last. It does not matter. What matters is what are you going to do about it? And therefore, my first response to all leaders are stop reading articles on corona. Start thinking about what are you going to do at this moment. What are you going to do for your employees? What are you going to do for your customers? Where are you going to harvest? Where are you going to invest? So that would be my first thing. My second story was when we were moving from Nagpur to Pantnagar. We were on a train and it was midnight. The train was very, very hot. Obviously, it was not air conditioned. So I got out of the train at Ratlam station because the scene outside was very enchanting. It was midnight. My two brothers and my parents were sleeping. When I got down from the train started moving. These are normally 2-minute stops. And I was very confident and cocky, which I continue to be. And I believed that I can run and catch the train. So I ran behind the train after some time and tried to get onto the train. I could not because you don't have the strength in your legs to push you up when you are running. And your arms don't have that strength at the age of 8. So I fell and I had doubt. I got up, started running again, fell again. Now it was panic. Now here is a choice which I had to make. Now the train was running faster than I was. It was clear out of 2 or 3 instances of falling that I would not be able to get onto the train. So the question is, do I run behind an impossible train to catch or do I stand and cry? I remembered Mrs. Anand and therefore I started running behind the train and one compartment after another compartment kept on running besides me and there is no way I could now catch hold of the train. It was running faster. And out of nowhere, there was a vegetable vendor lady who came, caught me hold of my knickers and threw me in the guard compartment. Now, obviously, I united with my parents, never told them for many, many years. Otherwise, they would have disowned me. They would have taken me to the station. Those were the parents at that particular time. They love you, but they want to make sure that you learn a lesson. Now, I think the second lesson in my life is, unless you are chasing impossible trains, how would somebody throw you on those trains? You will always underperform your aspiration. If your aspiration itself is low, just because of one excuse or the other excuse, a coronavirus excuse, a government excuse, a Trump excuse, a China excuse, you will underperform that aspiration. So the question, my second point to all leaders is have unreasonable aspirations. There has to be no reason for those aspirations. Be unreasonable and therefore you have a chance of beating the others to the race. And the last, and I think to a certain degree the most important, is the fact that it is very important for you to understand that you are not alone in life. Whether it is your family, whether it is your friends, whether it is the society, and the most important, the employees in the workplace. There was a time when we were in industrial revolution where efficiency and cost were very critical, machines came in, and we reorganized people to be able to get 10 times higher productivity compared to what we were getting before the machine age. All the management thought and thinking came during the industrial age. Appraisal systems, pyramid structures, you are good and you are average. All that crap came during the industrial age, and books and management thinkers have written, the entire HR function or industrial relationship function came during that period. When innovation came in, and we were not measuring productivity per capita, but we are measuring innovation and ideas per capita, none of those management principles were relevant because now you're not seeking productivity, you're seeking more ideas and more innovation per human capita. In that case, that is the time the migration between managing for productivity to leading for growth and innovation came up. And there is where the employee centricity or employee first, customer second, as we did in Insight Technology, became the centered theme of getting more out of your organizations by increasing its clock speed. So I would say that the third thing you need to think about right now is every single employee is watching you of how you panic, how you behave, whether you go into a self-preservation mode or you go to a higher purpose gear. And whatever you do today will be remembered forever, and that will be your legacy. So think carefully before you act in a very selfish way. Make my problem into our problem, and the employees will resonate and will respond. And remember, this crisis will be over, whether it will be over in 6 months' time, or it will be over in 2 years or 3 years' time. It will be over. And that particular time, will the employees give all they have for your growth? The answer is maybe not, depending on how you behave at this juncture. So these three mantras are what I would recommend for all leaders to carefully reflect, think, and take action so that they come out winners from the situation. Because to me, this is an opportunity, and many will fall at the altar of execution at this juncture. And the real men and women who are good leaders will stand out and be counted.
Thanks for that, Vineet. A small follow-up question. As a CEO, one has multiple stakeholders. So you have employees, you have customers, you have shareholders, you have suppliers and vendors, and then there is communities. Should people prioritize on a particular set, or how do you achieve a balance? So that's I think about it often and never really been able to answer that, especially in times like these.
So I think, Praveen, whoever made that question, that we have 4 stakeholders, is cheating us. So the question is that if you are in the business of acrobat and you give the responsibility of somebody else to tie the ropes, and you say, I am in the business of acrobat, not we are in the business of show, you're completely fooling yourself. Tell me one trick you can perform on your own in today's business. None. So the question is, I exist in isolation of my employees is idiotic thought. You don't. You would not be able to execute and move an inch without your employees. And therefore, the us who is performing is the us and not me. Right. And therefore, there is no multiple stakeholders. There is a customer, there is a shareholder, there is a society, and then there is us, not employees. So once you understand the us in that, and even when you are in family, let's say you get into financial distress, you tell everybody, okay, we will not go out in restaurants, we will not go out for a holiday, we will not buy stuff, we will eat only 2 meals a day. All those decisions you take within the family. It's not that you do not face tough times. You lose a family member, you get emotional, everybody is there to, but that feeling of us in a family never stops. Certainly because you are running short of food, you don't say, I'm not going to give food to my wife and to my children or to my husband, and I'm going to have all the food. You don't do that, right? You share whatever you have. It is us. So I think it is very important for us to get the feeling that the first stakeholder who is most important for us to perform is us. Don't lose that. And don't make employee as a stakeholder. Employee is the core. That's the first part. I think the second part is that the customer is primary instrument to your existence. And using the employees, you have to find innovative ways to be able to deal with the employees. I would say the shareholders at this particular time are going to be critical as much as society is going to be critical. There is only one other change which has happened in this, Praveen. My first change of thought is in terms of us. I think the second is that organizations, given the crisis which is happening in US right now, not just coronavirus, but also their outlook to racism and to humanity, organizations which do not have purpose, sets of people who do not have purpose, are not going to get buyers. So therefore, we saw organizations which were not climate sensitive or climate positive. A lot of consumers, did not buy from them. I think you are going to see the same thing with a lot of Chinese companies globally, that if you're a Chinese brand, a lot of people, if they have a choice, will not buy Chinese brand, predominantly because they believe China doesn't stand for the right values, which the rest of the world stands for. I think you as a company, if it is not seen as a company alluding to higher purpose in life, I think you'll be left behind. And therefore, thinking about society, is equally important as you think about your customers and the other shareholders.
Very clear, very, very clear thought there. Thanks, Vineet. A lot of, as you know, 80% of the corporate world is working from home, and the whole rules of engagement are going through a change. Can you share some ideas for leaders to engage, inspire, motivate their people during these times? And also on an, my question is not around work from home alone, but generally, there's so much negativity around us. So how should leaders be engaging and inspiring employees right now?
So today I run a very small organization. We have 160 employees in Sampark Foundation. All of them are in remote villages, working to be able to drive schools, learning outcome in schools. We work in 76,000 schools, work with 70 lakh children. And suddenly the schools shut down. And suddenly these boys and girls don't have a job, means they have nothing to do. So the first thing which I announced was that we announced a policy of no spark left behind. That means for the next 3 years, none of you will lose your job. None of you will lose a penny of whatever was promised to you. So no cute little circular of saying we will not pay bonuses, no cute little thing saying 10% cut here and 10% variable, nothing cute. And we advanced our payment of salary by 7 days. That means if you were paying on the first of every day, every month, we will pay it 7 days in advance, just to make sure that you are in good stead. So the first step towards engaging the us is to make sure your employees feel financially secure, make sure that the zone of uncertainty is not there in their minds for themselves. That is the only time they start thinking. Same is true with HCL. In 2008, when the recession came in, we went down and defined a policy called no HCLite left behind. So we went and said everybody was getting rid of employees, as is happening today. And we announced a policy that we will not get rid of a single employee. And that created a huge amount of positivity. That's step one. But I think step two is very important in terms of, okay, now the employees have your attention. They are feeling safe and secure. What do they do? And communicate. Now, how do you communicate? Now, Zoom communication is a very personal communication because as you are seeing me and I'm seeing you, you are seeing me closer than you normally see me. Right? So now you're seeing my close-up. So you're seeing every expression. You are seeing interest or lack of interest. And you are noticing all the stuff you never noticed, that this guy is not, his eyes are moving here and there. He's not taking interest. So therefore now you are on the pedestal of evaluation more than you ever were. So I would say that start your every meeting by spending 5 minutes on the topic of how are you? What's happening in your life? We will come to numbers later. Because we are on a treadmill, we immediately move from one Zoom meeting to another Zoom meeting or WebEx meeting or Hangout meeting. and we do not ask the fundamental questions on how are you. Now, the moment you ask me the question, how are you, my disposition towards you suddenly becomes warm and emotional. And therefore, whatever you are going to say becomes clearer. So turn the switch, the disadvantage of being on Zoom, you can convert that into a massive advantage by being personal. So that's a second part of it. The third part of it is engage the mind. Now, whatever in your respective business we can do or we can't do, or my employees cannot visit the school. But we decided, we set a goal that we will reach 1 crore children while they are at home. So we launched an app, we launched training, we launched new games, we launched entertainment. We did some fairly innovative work. And therefore, I asked all my 160 employees, give me ideas for us to reach these 1 crore children while they are at home. So now they become part of your solution and you are engaging their mind and they're finding answers and they're finding solutions. So I would say that if you continue doing what you were doing in the physical business, in the current business scenario, then you will get it all wrong. But if you converted it as an opportunity, and as we were discussing, we are all working twice as hard as that we were working with, but we can also work as twice as smart if we do this. So I think this is the greatest opportunity for the leaders to understand this is an opportunity, right? Like Mrs. Anand said, so, okay, Corona has happened. What are you going to do about it? So you need to pick up that second stone and break a window. Now, if you're afraid of picking up the stone and only watching as to why did it happen and you're crying about it, then you will keep standing on the dining table and never progress in life.
Okay. So, Vineet, last question. What do you think are the top learnings for leaders during this crisis? And if there's one thing that you would like leaders to change about themselves post the crisis, what would that be?
I think this change came to my life when I started reading a couple of books and started thinking about this. Is the fact that the impermanence of life is quite apparent, and we see it around us. I and you will die one day. It could be today, it could be tomorrow, or it could be a few years down the line. But the fact is that we will not exist here forever. Now, if that thought is clear in your head, then the question you ask is, what is the purpose of your existence, right? Now, in my mind, the purpose of existence, which will give you joy, is in 4 layers. The first layer is financial security. You need to be secured for anything else. Second is professional excellence and achievement, that you did stuff others could not do. So you are the best in your business. But the third is influencing others and creating happiness in the lives of the others. Now, that gives so much joy to you compared to the first two, but you need to do the first two to be able to get there. And therefore, when you ask the question of purpose of your life of existence, and if you redefine it, the purpose of my life is to create financial security for myself, be the best there is in my business, but in the process, create happiness for everybody around me, in other than my family, you will suddenly start viewing your leadership decisions, your management decisions, your way of approaching profitability, your way of approaching cost cutting, your way of approaching strategy, your way of inspiring people, getting them to do stuff they have not done before. You will start seeing it in a completely different light. So I think this is the time when you see crisis all around you, the migrant crisis, the poverty crisis, the joblessness crisis, the food crisis, the health crisis, for you to introspect and say how lucky and fortunate you are. And then ask yourself the most important second question, okay, so what are you going to do with the fact that you're so fortunate? Now, I, for one, have dedicated 90% of my wealth to try and change the lives of 2 crore children across India. And I quit in 2013 HCL Technologies at the peak, only to be able to answer this question that life is really rewarding if you are working for somebody else in terms of for the happiness of somebody else. You may not quit your job, but even as a CEO, you could influence and change the life of your employees, their family members, or the people around you. And this is the year where you make that switch. This is the year you make that switch to say that the reason of my existence has to be beyond my selfish and beyond my company's selfish needs, but it has to be for the good of the greater humanity. And the moment you make that switch, Praveen, I'm telling you, there is joy all over your life. I am happier, 10 times happier today than I was, driving deals and profitability. And I'm glad I did that, because without that, I will not have the financial resources. I will not have the recognition. I'm glad I did it. But I'm glad I quit all that. And I'm glad I'm doing this today, because it gives you joys and happiness. And that is there. You and me will go one day, but some of us will die.
Insightful, very energizing. Every time I have shared this with you, every time I meet you, I come out very energized. And I'm sure this discussion, in the middle of gloom and doom, brings out so much of positivity, sense of purpose, moving towards selflessness, making others happy. I think great messages, but most importantly, I think the feeling energized, feeling positive, and I'm sure everyone who watches this video will do themselves a favor. I have known you for such a long time, and every time I meet, I learn something new. But today was radical, really radical. Thank you so much. I really appreciate your time. And I'm sure everyone who watches this video will appreciate this.
Thank you. Thank you, Praveen. Take care. All the very best.
Thank you.